Good afternoon. Wow. Don't worry, that wasn't AI. That was still purely human. Welcome to the European Film Market. Welcome to a very timely discussion, which is really at the heart of the moment. AI in the audiovisual sector, innovation, ethics, and democratic values. This is a very pertinent conversation, and on behalf of everyone, I guess, I would like to thank the European Parliament, the European Commission, all our speakers, and the European Film Academy, and of course you participating in this very timely debate. Before we begin, my name is Sten Saluveer. I'm the head of Cannes Next at the Marché de Film Festival de Cannes, as well as head the Tallinn Digital Summit, which is a political gathering of world leaders trying to make the world not to fall apart in these very extraordinary times. And I'd like to give you a little bit of a bigger picture what is happening. If we would have met here perhaps a year ago, then the world would have been inherently quite different. Within that year, we have the European AI Act coming into action, setting an unprecedented regulation and the framework for the protection of consumers, but as well as building an ethical AI industry. We, of course, in the United States had the SAG-AFTRA strikes that were halting a lot of the industry globally, but also defined some of the vocabulary that we're using to address AI. For example, synthetic media, digital replicas, and the way how certain types of industry-led initiatives can work. We have bigger studios already committing to artificial intelligence. You have seen all of those news of libraries being given for training for bigger AI organizations. And of course, some of the bigger AI players very blatantly accessing and training data that some of it is on ours. Most recently, and you might have paid attention to this week, on Monday and Tuesday, and actually even yesterday, there was the big AI summit in Paris, encompassing many, many aspects of artificial intelligence, creativity, culture, industry, politics, military, and so on. And some of those dialogues will going to influence what the world around artificial intelligence will be for us today, tomorrow, and in many places to come. I hope you agree that in a many way or another, AI is going to impact our lives, do we want it or not. But of course, for us, it's time to figure out how can we address this technology, how can we address it safely so that everyone benefits, and how can we actually make it work for the European audiovisual industry. And these conversations today will be exactly about that matters. A little bit of practicalities as well. We will be conducting two sessions. The first will be giving a broader look, and the second one will be broadly looking at innovation. We'll have an opening statement, a conversation with our panelists across the political and filmmaking and the AI technology spectrum. And then, of course, there is plenty of opportunity for you to have a Q&A and raise your questions and issues as well. So I hope we're going to have a great 3 hours on debating, trying to understand and figuring out ways how we can harness AI for European audiovisual sector. Without further ado, I have a great pleasure to welcome on stage for the opening statements, Emma Rafowicz. She's the Vice Chair, Committee of Culture and Education at the European Parliament. Welcome.
Thank you so much. First of all, it is a pleasure to be with so many of you today. I guess that means that we are really worried, but also really happy to discuss this subject. Ladies and gentlemen, dear creators, producers, policymakers, it is a privilege for me to stand before you today as we embark on a crucial discussion about artificial intelligence and its growing impact on the film industry and our democracies. We are at a defining moment, one where the power of AI is reshaping the way citizens engage in the democratic debate and how we create, produce, distribute, and consume content. Our collective challenge is, of course, to ensure that AI serves as a tool for creativity and citizenship rather than a force that undermines the fundamental rights of creators and the pillars of our democracies. Artificial intelligence is actually nothing new. It has permeated our society for several decades now. The real novelty, an undeniable upheaval, lies in the so-called generative artificial intelligence, capable of producing new artistic, literary, and audiovisual content after having trained itself on existing content. This training involves the massive use of works and content to copy them, taking advantage of loopholes in European legislation. In European legislation, numerous AI models plunder the creations of artists to build up huge, often opaque databases. Beyond this problematic appropriation, there is also the question of recommendation algorithms, which influence the discoverability of works, reinforcing cognitive bubbles and standardizing cultural tastes to the detriment of diversity. Generative AI, as we know it today, deregulated and dominated by private interests, represents a danger to the rights of authors and artists to their fair remuneration and, by extension, to creation and cultural diversity. On these topics, we will need to unite the industry and policymakers. On the one hand, the role of the industry is to bring forward the key challenges and hopes of the sector. You, the filmmakers, producers, artists, know better than anyone the impact of AI on storytelling, production processes, and audience engagement. Policymakers, on the other hand, have a duty to listen to you, but also to evaluate and propose a clear regulatory path, one that reflects democratic values and safeguards cultural diversity. It is imperative that this path is formally submitted to the EU's democratic institution, Parliament and Council, ensuring that the final vote defines the applicable law. Why emphasize this? Because a soft law approach is not sufficient in a sector where powerful tech giants dominate the landscape. Without strong regulation, we risk an environment where AI-driven content erodes copyright protections, disrupts economic models, and weakens the democratic debates. We'd expect the European Commission to take a firm stance, especially now, given the shifting dynamics in the US policy. The upcoming digital rulebook must reflect this commitment, reinforcing protections for both EU citizens and cultural rights holders. Beyond this upcoming digital rulebook, there is an existing legislation we should rely on, the AI Act. It offers an initial framework, but the safeguards currently in place are not enough. We need stronger provisions that make AI a safe space for both creators and citizens, especially as we witness rising authoritarianism and manipulation beyond our borders. And let me be clear, innovation must not be presented as contrary or opposite of regulation and safeguards. We also have to act at the international level. In this context, the AI summit was quite disappointing, a failure. The Copyright Charter was detached from the final declaration of the summit on artificial intelligence, and it is not okay. When it comes to AI, other topics obviously are quite important, such as addressing the threat of deepfake, misinformation, and online radicalization or algorithm biases. To address all these topics, AI must be designed with human values at its core. We must resist centralized control by a handful of tech giants and instead advocate for decentralized AI solutions that preserve artistic integrity and democratic pluralism. Europe has a responsibility not just to regulate AI, but to shape its role in our cultural and democratic ecosystem. We must act decisively to protect our democracy, our artists, and our creative industry while embracing the opportunities that AI presents. I know that these times are worrying, but know that you have in the European Parliament members that are on your side. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opening statements. And now we're proceeding to the panel discussion. And for the panel discussion, I have the great pleasure to invite on stage Ms. Renate Nikolay. She's the Deputy Director General for the Communications, Networks, Content and Technology at European Commission, DG Connect. Mr. Mats Tamsbo, he is a producer at Macropol, and Mats' film about the hero, about AI, as well as using AI, was the opening film of ITFA last year. Welcome, Mats. Representing the directors, I have a great pleasure to invite Ms. Pauline Durand-Bial. She's the CEO of FERA, the Federation of European Film Directors. Welcome. And last but not least, Ms. Emma Rafowicz. She's the Vice Chair, Committee on Culture and Education. Welcome. So let's get into the heart of the matter. On stage, we have the European Parliament, the film directors, the producers, and the European Commission. I would like to actually start from here. And the European Parliament actually recently conducted a study, especially on the Cultural Committee, on AI. Can you give us a little bit of a hindsight or a broad view that composed recommendations, also on legal matters, but it also had I think quite a outspoken summary on the state of play?
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to say that I am not alone from the Cultural Committee, and I am well accompanied. The subject of AI, as I just said, is something that is obviously really important to us. And in the Cult Committee, and I want to be completely clear, because obviously we know that the times that we are going through are really tough. We know that a lot of people in Europe are scared, and normally so, because obviously we know that the Trump administration of today and are wanting today to actually act and to be really aggressive towards Europe, and especially in this area of big tech. We want to be really innovative. We want to invest in innovation. But we do not want to sacrifice authors' rights in the name of competitiveness. It is something that I think could be an easy thing to do, but we think that Europe, and especially the European project, is something that can both be competitive and also can be really strong in the way we see our democratic values in Europe. What we see in the Cult Committee is that there is basically two different debates around AI. The first one is how AI, generative AI, produces new content. And that is what I call and what others call sometimes the big theft. How contents, how cinema, films, books, creation is stolen from artists to make content, to copy it. And it is something that we know, that basically everyone in the industry knows, and we want today to make sure that the Parliament, the European Parliament, the Commission also, works on making both the algorithms transparent, but also to work with the authors to guarantee consent, to guarantee remuneration, and then, of course, to create an ethical way of working. The second issue is how do we create places where we do not have AI generative created content that is basically competing with content that is created by artists. And on those two topics, I think that the Committee of Culture will be really we will really address those issues. Because we see today that, of course, citizens are especially worried. But we know that innovation can be something really good only if we really make sure that these new technologies exist in a frame that is both democratic and ethical for everyone.
Thank you. Ms. Nikolay, I want to come a little bit, and I want to be a little bit provocative, so let me apologize beforehand. We heard in the opening statement that the Paris summit was a failure. At the same time, we saw that certainly there were very strong statements from United States on what their perspective is, but I think there were very encouraging statements from the European Commission as well. Commissioner von der Leyen outlined an unprecedented investment opportunity. I believe that was more than 50 billion euros to build, and later more, including the French initiative as well as this idea of European platforms, whether they are Mistral or Helsinki or many others, to come into state of play. As a part of a DG Connect and in the framework of the AI Act, what do you see the pragmatic road ahead as well as the scalability aspect, where understandably now we are at the play of the big forces, that AI has become the tool of the grand powers. What can we do here in terms of the Commission to be able to face that grand power game on our own terms?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I think the term of the day is to catch up. That's, I think, the idea of the AI Innovation Summit, which I would not describe as a failure, but rather as, from an EU perspective, certainly a rather robust and assertive expression of, we want to be part of that game. We want to be part of that innovation race that is happening across the sectors. It was a lot about the industrial sector's AI potential at the AI Summit in Paris. And I think the idea of the initiative that the president has laid out that could, if you combine the public and the private money, lead to an investment potential of 200 billion is a very, very good sign. Because I think there are areas in medicine, in agriculture, in mobility, where if we now kind of put our act together and work on supporting investment in Europe in intelligent startups, give them the possibility with the AI factories to train to their models on European kind of territory and scale there, then the jury is still out. What will be the key industrial AI applications of the future? My wish would be that in some of the sectors where Europe has strength, we can actually make that jump, because certainly the future innovation kind of jumps in the industries will be determined also by AI. And it would be better for the entire world if some of these champions could also grow in Europe. And I think that's for me the testimony of the AI Summit in Paris. And I think also in the geopolitics that we are in, to gather a lot of players around the world at a summit and to have a communiqué, even though it wasn't signed by all, but nevertheless to have a statement where a lot of important kind of players of the world united behind that is also, I think, an important marker these days.
Some of the ongoing debates right now, of course, in Europe, if we consider the audiovisual sector, is this type of a discussion of cultural heritage, artistic expression, fair remuneration, but also some type of an industrial approach. Has the Commission foreseen in its kind of a future roadmap how the AI can spill over more into the European audiovisual and creative sectors? We know that, we have statistically know that some of European companies unfortunately have jumped the boat, across the channel or even transatlantically, if you will. The question is, and I think the ambition jointly is here to have European works to be preserved, to have our excellence in place. But now the question is, how can we marry that industrial capacity with that very unique creative spark that nobody doubts on? Do you have any thoughts, and are there any ideas? Because the sector somewhat has been tagging along that scaling in terms of money, but as well as in political importance. But within this new AI declaration, do you foresee any developments in there?
Well, I think it's kind of a holistic approach that we need. On the one hand, I think there is a kind of a promise also for the creative sector that, you know, AI can support creativity, can make it efficient, can kind of, you know, help with the automation. So there is a promise there. And I think part of what we can do also from a European perspective, from a European Commission perspective, is support that kind of development of the creative sector to use these potential. On the other hand, I think there's an equally important promise that we made with the AI Act, referring to the copyright directive and referring to the rights of the right holders to kind of, you know, opt out of the text and data mining, to really make that balance work. Yes. Because that's the kind of, I think the advantage that we have right now, that we have the text and data mining exemption in the copyright acquis. We just need to make sure that in this AI revolution that we are observing, this is really usable. And that, I think, was the idea of the AI Act, with the template that will be developed now, to really make sure that this can be used, so that right holders can kind of, you know, ensure they get the fair remuneration that they deserve. And then we will see how that works. And then we have, in 2026 anyway, an evaluation coming our way of the copyright acquis. Mm-hmm. And that will be a good occasion to see, is there any gap? Is there anything that we need to do on top of that to ensure also a sustainable fairness in the system against the kind of continuation of AI development? So that's how I would kind of schedule the both sides. You need to push the industry to also use this opportunity and not to close up against it. But on the other hand, we need to watch the kind of the fairness and the fair remuneration aspect in it to ensure creativity is remunerated also in the Europe when it is an AI continent.
Yes. Pauline, transatlantically last year regarding AI and filmmaking was a place of total havoc. I remember I was at South by Southwest, which has been a very prominent platform for United States independent film, but any other type of independent film, and having coming out of that the type of a very big strike, the effects were very foreseeing, and then hopefully there were good outcomes. How is FERA approaching this subject matter? What is the position of FERA? Are you putting in place any guidelines of kind of directors first approach or directors approach to AI?
Thanks for this question. I have to confess something. I've been thinking a lot over the last week about what to say today, because this topic is so massive, so complex, both on the technology side, on the political side, that it has become, to me, a little bit challenging to address sometimes. But at the same time, I like your question. It's very practical. What do we do when we think of this matter from the perspective of the community that we at FERA represent, setting aside everything we hear in the news and the European affairs agenda? Well, first of all...
Let's start from the beginning.
Voilà. It's much easier, you're right. First of all, I have to say, talking also to colleagues before coming in today, directors, screenwriters, actors, producers, and actually every single part of the value chain in this sector is incredibly innovative by nature. Every time you have a technological change, you can see that it is embraced at every stage of the creative distribution process. I mean, this is a thing. This is one of the sectors that you will find which is so flexible that it can absorb all of that. So there is this mindset already embedded in the thinking of a lot of people. But this technology is not like technological change we've experienced before. Emma said it really well, so that's great because I don't have to do it. It's transformative by essence, and what it does is that it competes with creators' work in terms of eyeballs, you know, bandwidth of mind space of audiences. So it raises a lot of questions. What is the place of human creation? I'm not going to be long, don't worry. My point is, when you have to take this mindset into what we're experiencing today, what we have is, first of all, we're being told the legal framework of this IP-intensive industry is actually going to work in a certain way. There's an interpretation, this TDM exception, etc. Obviously, we don't all agree on that, so I'm not going to get there because I'm sure in the audience many people don't care about that. But the one thing that I feel matters is that it's also about uptake of the technology in the industry, as Mrs. Nikolay said. On both of these fronts, the questions are massive. Because put yourself in the shoes of somebody who's just been robbed of everything, and then you're telling them, okay, well, the robbers have taken everything, but they're good at doing something, and we want for you to do the same thing as they do, work with them to, create new stuff, and it's going to be very good and very competitive. It's a bit tough, I have to say. It's a bit tough because, how can you trust a technology which is going to be not just the technology in the work you do, but business partners as well that you're going to have to work with? All of this is complicated. I'm sure, the panel after will have some stuff to say about that. And the second sort of context element to all of this is really that to build trust, we're going to have to be sure that the companies that we work with, that the employers that work with creators and make sure that creation can happen are not imposing something on that. Because AI, we can all experience it on a daily basis. What does it do when you use it in an office? It helps productivity. Okay, helping productivity in this sector, what does it mean? Working faster? Working how? What part of the industry is going to benefit from it? What is the benefit of it and for whom? If the objective is only to, if the consequences are that you just use this technology to cut costs, because that is where the industry can be right now, if you're looking at a wider picture than just cinema, then we're going to have a bit of a problem, because there is already such pressure in this industry on creative people, on actors, on crew members, that mental health issues have never been this high. So my question is this: the uptake of the technology in the industry, how will it happen? Will we have a social dialogue, understanding of all these, of the challenges that the technology can pose in terms of pressure on time, on money? I mean, I don't want to go on forever, but it feels to me like there is an issue with regards to authors' rights. There is an issue with regards to the standing of the relationship of creators with their rights and what they can make of it in the context of training. But there is a massive question that will come about the uptake of the technology of the industry. Which companies will have control of this? How will it be imposed on the creative process? And basically, will creators remain authors of their works and free to tell the stories they need to tell in a context of higher productivity in the major party of the sector?
Thank you. Mats, do you feel like a grave robber right now?
Am I the grave robber?
Well, that's why I'm asking you.
Well, I mean...
let's start from the beginning. So,
maybe
so there was a bet, or kind of a bet, with a very prominent European filmmaker.
I can
accessing his works. And then.
Do you want to tell me? Should I?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I represent the film About a Hero, which was a film written by an AI trained to be Werner Herzog, with his his skepticism as well, very well-founded skepticism. It took us 5 years to finance and make the film that was opening at IDFA last year. But not only that, it was also a film that opened up my eyes as a producer and as a creative technologist to the intense, wide range of potentials and also scary avenues that the generative AI can actually take and can actually be useful in film production. And we used everything from deep faking to voice cloning to image generation.
And Werner was okay?
Werner said the film is very alarming, and he said that he would probably be able to do it better himself, which I think is what he's supposed to say. Which
so
is
hope
true.
Is not lost.
Yeah. And of course, the film is not only an adaptation of this AI-written screenplay, it also tries to explore the question that you just asked here in the end, is what does it mean if AIs become the storytellers and take the stories from the people that are trying to tell us, humans that want to tell stories, and what does it make us as humans in that regard? What makes us unique to machines if they can come into our domain of art and of storytelling? Yeah, that was the introduction. Did you have a question based on that?
Yes, I did. Well, look, pragmatically saying you went to pioneer this production in a very unknown environment. And if you look at back of the replies and the remarks of our panelists today regarding the kind of the rights issue, productivity issue, as well as implementing the technology, I presume for the good of the European creators, what do you see as the sort of a potential road ahead? Is it a compromise? Is it an opportunity? What we would need to do, very pragmatic times, and Largo Films, which is also presenting here at the European film market, they actually estimated that thanks to generative AI, the growth of content in general will be about 100x in the next 5 years. So to Pauline's point as well, what do you kind of see in this environment where, you know, some of our friends across any types of oceans will be just going on a path of automatically producing that type of a content? What's the opportunity here for the European, very profound cultural art house filmmaker?
Yes, thank you. I am a techno-optimist by nature. I also represent a startup company that works with AI for filmmaking. And so I believe a lot in the potential of the technology to be part of a creative process for filmmakers. Actually, I think that we are looking into a future where we have to consider there will be a lot more content, as you just said, but the actual problem will be the curation of that. I mean, I think there is a real big potential of democratizing audiovisual storytelling. When you have these tools that are so powerful, we can see voices come from anywhere that wouldn't have access to the industrial complex that is filmmaking as of today, that can actually be voices heard from across all of the cultures that Europe represents, but also all over the world. So that potential is there in the co-creation between humans and machines. But I think the real issue then will be, how do we create the right access, the right gatekeepers for it? How do we make sure that there is an actual copyrightable way for this content to appear, to be distributed, to be disseminated? What will it actually take? You know, do we need to go into prompt documentation to see how you as a human created something together with machine? And then in the end, it's all about the data. Like where was this trained, on what, with what light, you know, with what rights do we have, right? And I think we have a unique opportunity as a very rich culture where we have immense amount of beautiful data in Europe, in archives, in broadcasters, in all over the place, that could become a massive pool for this new democratizing of audiovisual storytelling.
Thank you. Do you have any questions from the audience?
Can't see you.
Yes, there is a question at the very back.
Thank you very much. I would like to know how we can imagine to enter in a kind of a epoch that is completely change our costume, we could say, and our habits, without a strong and straight juridical framework on that. How we can imagine to enter. I mean, we heard our governments that speak about thousands of millions to invest in this world that we don't know, and there is no word about the juridical framework about that.
So maybe question to you, juridical frameworks. What's about to come with AI Act and everything else?
Well, first of all, there is already a lot done. That's what I can say, but what is to come is actually not what worries me, because it is what we will have to, and how to say that, but I share, and that's why I want to begin, I share the optimism. It is not about, I am not a pessimist. I have never been one. However, I think that everything that we've done, especially the AI Act, especially the Copyright Directive and things like that, are things that that were created because we needed them and because we need them now. And I don't want us to be rushed in the opposite direction because we are afraid of what is happening or what could happen. I think that we have created all these tools, and they were democratically approved by the European Parliament with a vast majority, because there was something that we, with a vast majority, thought it was the good thing to do. So now what we need is to talk to the sector, and I'm saying this as a member of parliament. We need to talk to you, and we do that every day, to know what works and what doesn't, what worries you, and what creates a good environment for you to work in. I do believe that AI can be something really great for your industry. It can be a new technology that you can embrace, like you said, a new technology that can change things, that can open up new doors, new windows for you to work in. However, we also need to care about AI. And already we know how does it work? How does artificial intelligence work? It works because it has your work. It has your content that is human-made. And so if tomorrow we create a context where your work is devaluated because basically you cannot make money off of it, then AI doesn't work anymore. It is just something that kills creation. And I don't want that to happen. I want AI, I want all tools to exist, to create, to be something that is a tool for you, not a tool against you. And so the frame of work that obviously we have created and that we need to develop, because obviously it is something that confronts itself with reality. We cannot just do a legal framework every 5 years and then 10 years later, with maybe 10 years late, going back to you and say, so how did you survive? That cannot happen. We have to ask you every day, how does it work with you? How does it impact your way of working? Because to be honest, I really like what you are telling, like your story. It's beautiful because it's creation. It's human-based creation. You used AI, generative AI, as a tool to create impact, to ask questions like artists do, because that is what art is all about. But today, we obviously have area of worry, especially when it comes, for example, to opt-out solutions. Because today, the transparency level all over these tools is not enough. I know that we are facing what some people call the big tech, the tech giants. And I know that this is sometimes a bit scary to confront them on the methods they are using. I am not in any way facing the idea of technology or the idea of innovation. What I want to challenge with all of you, because I know you are also wanting to challenge all these people, is not the technology, is the people who today are writing the algorithms. It is not the same thing. Because today it is what is obviously a danger for all of us, a danger for creation, but it also can be an opportunity. That's exactly what we need to make. But as citizens, because that's what we all are, even if some of us are now in parliament, as citizens, we must create frames that protect everyone. I don't want Elon Musk to tell us what we must do with a new technology. I don't like to see him parade around Paris to say how great AI is. that's not what I want. I want AI to be a tool by creators, for creation, and for democracy. And that's why I think the frame of the law in Europe must be. And that's why we are working in Parliament with the Commission, I hope, and with everyone, is to create something that protects everyone, but also that brings us more in a protected place for the 21st century for democracy. I know it's sometimes boring, but that's what we do.
We have time for one more question.
Hello. Hi. I'd like, this is a question for everybody, but specifically Mads. I didn't get the titles for everybody, but there are at least two, one MEP and one representative of directors on stage, and I don't think I heard democracy or democratization from either. Mads had used democratization quite often, and I'd like to challenge you on what that means, because I think that word has been overused, if not misused.
Mads, you want to react to
just
that?
offer a little bit more, that there's no... I know in video games and I know in literature that there's been a huge rise in self-published books. There's been a huge rise, and when I say huge, between 0.6 million in 2014 to 2 point something million in 2024.
And the question?
The question is, where do you see democratization as helpful, is that the real problem we face?
Oh my God, this is going to be, maybe I'm going to throw...
You have about 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to throw a little ball here. I mean, I think, to me, what I'm looking into is a future that also has to accept the fact that we might meet autonomous general intelligence, right? And to be honest, if in that future scenario, I want as many people, as many artists, as many creators as possible to be working tightly and entwined with artificial intelligence on every single level they possibly can, preferably safe and in a very ethical and sustainable way that doesn't kill the world we live in. I know this is a big ask, but I do believe that there is a need to be deep inside these algorithms, to understand them on a very personal level, and to create something together with them in order for us to tell the stories that are about us.
Thank you. Pauline?
No, just to follow up kind of on what you just said, actually. I think we can all imagine how it is possible to work assisted by AI in a way that makes sense. I think in this sector it is very possible, I'm sure. There are people who just don't want that also, so I think that's okay too. And it should be okay as well in the future. But the problem is that the tools that are interesting to use are all using large language models at their very core. And all these large language models have been trained by stealing every single data out there, copyrighted works and not.
Luckily, there are also European, and I can also say Australian entrepreneurs and companies who are not developing large language models, but they are actually developing small language models, which are AI trained on a particular screenwriter's work on the screenwriter's consent.
Well, agreeing with you, as it happens, every single app that we have encountered and discussed the founders of are using OpenAI, all of them. Actually, they're using 4 large language models systematically at the core of an interface which is actually local. In many, I mean, we could have a technical discussion about this, but the point is, if you need the data that has been already harvested to use and to make these tools functioning for the sector on a daily basis, and we cannot sort out the respect of the of copyrighted harvesting there, if we cannot sort that issue in a way which is legally sound, none of what comes out of this is legally sound to be copyrighted anyway. So it seems to me like if we don't sort that out, we cannot move forth with using the technology, one way or the other.
Last remark.
No, of course, I agree. And what I'm saying here is just that that is the responsibility, I think, of these new investments that we're seeing, that the data, the training, that these things become available to the European citizens creators. So obviously, yes, this is what we need to do, but we still have to do a sidestep. We still have to be in it. We still have to work with it and see and test how far can we take this and where is it going and how do we learn from it as we go, right? We cannot just sit back and wait for the laws and the framework to be in place.
You're talking about normalizing a disruption, which is what's happening right now. And you know what? Maybe that does make sense. But again, who does it really benefit immediately? And what kind of consequences will we observe in the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years? That is our concern structurally. While on an individual basis, I'm sure all my people would agree with you.
Pauline, I have a great suggestion. Who it exactly benefits, we're going to talk in the next panel. Thank you. So thank you to your wonderful speakers. We'll have a small break and seeing a clip, and then we actually move to the discussion, who exactly will it benefit? Thank you.
Είδα σαν είδαμε ένα όνειρο. Είδα, λέει, ότι ήμουν πάνω στη σκηνή, στο σπίτι μου μέσα.
Папа, я тебя люблю. Возвращайся скорее домой.
Is anybody in love? I'm in love with all of you.
So this was a clip, a Lux medley. As you know, Lux Audience Award is organized by the European Parliament and the European Film Academy in collaboration with Creative Europe Media and Europa Cinemas. The award celebrates European cinema and it aims to engage and debate with the larger European public on important societal subjects, reflecting our common European values such as democracy, rule of law, pluralism, and freedom of expression. And I'd like to again thank our partners, the European Commission, the European Parliament, the European Film Academy, as well as Europa Cinemas for bringing on this conversation. Now, I hope you are very well caffeinated and ready to move on our second panel. Yes? Great. And on the second panel, we're going to talk about new opportunities and path of innovation. And without further ado, I have a great pleasure to invite our on stage our second panelist, Ms. Diana Riba y Guiner. She's the Vice Chair, Committee on Culture and Education from Spain. Welcome. Mr. Marcos Rosempere, a substitute member, Committee on Culture and Education, also from Spain. Welcome. Yes, and we hope we can have the names on the screen as well. Yes, they are coming. Our third speaker will be Mr. Volodymyr Ovsienko. Business Development Executive at Respeecher, and last but not least, Ms. Sophie Whitevedt. She's a futurist and Senior Advisor and Head of Media at the Copenhagen Institute of Future Studies. So welcome. So let's then, our first session basically focused really on these important aspects of trying to preserve the European unique spark, the rights of the authors, the very specific designation of the creative and cultural industry, as really a need to kind of understand what happens to the original creative spark of the professional in this industry. Mrs. Riba, I want to actually start with you again. What were the kind of the more concise findings and recommendations that came out of the work that you had been doing in the past month? And it basically looked at these innovation aspects as well. There was quite an interesting list regarding that.
Okay, thank you. I'm one of the other members of the European Parliament today here. And yeah, this is a topic that we start to work a lot in the European Parliament in the last mandate, but for sure will be one of the pillars in this mandate, because the artificial intelligence is changing all the audiovisual sector in the ways I think that we couldn't imagine. And it's like years ago when the internet arrived to our life. I think now we have one of these changes that we don't know exactly what will be on. And for sure there are new opportunities, but we have to take care and have a good analysis of the situation. I think we see a little bit what will happen in the first panel, but there are a lot of the things that we have to take care. There are a lot of opportunities, like I say, but there are three things that I want to highlight.
Please.
One is the impact of the actors and creative professional. I think here there are a clear impact in the creative of the actors. We see, for example, what is the artificial intelligence is doing, making copy of our voices, of our faces, of creating digital doubles that look like really just like real people, but it's not real people. The citizens, we don't know if it's real or not, this image that we receive. And we don't know what happens in the sector of the actors, because sometimes it's not really transparency what is happening in the, for example, the contracts. We don't know what with this image that now this having all the industry, what can they do with all this image? And this is something that is really worried for all of us, what is happening with this contrast, with this image, because in the end, if they only need one day to create a movie, one day of the work of the actor to create all a movie, it's really dangerous for all the sector. The second is the artificial intelligence generate disinformation. We saw it, all of us, in our mobiles. We can see every day how many images we receive that perhaps create disinformation. There are deep fakes, audios. We saw it in so many places. I don't have to explain. And this is something that the European Parliament and all the parliaments will have to take care in the new legislations. And the third is the artificial intelligence, the impact on the cultural diversity. And this is something, just to say it in one or two sentences, that affect a lot. If the artificial intelligence, it's trained with English, we lose all the linguistic diversity. If we're training this machine with only faces of young people, with some of the stereotypes that we wanted, we lose the diversity. And this is something that we have to take care in our legislation, or we will lose the reality in our image, the reality that where we are, the humans in our image, in our movies. And if we separate what we are looking at where we are, it's a really big problem for our democracies. It's a really big problem for the construction of how the women's how this woman creative. And let me just finish with a sentence that I wrote the other day that say, I want, when another person, I saw it in the social media, said, I want artificial intelligence to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not for artificial intelligence do my art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes. Thank you.
So that's a very good call to European home appliance makers. Mr. Sempere, Spain actually has, if you look kind of the big picture, Spain has been really on the forefront for screen and digital innovation for Europe. For quite a while, we see different types of hubs sparking up. What types of actions or activities you kind of foresee, or the kind of barriers and enables to develop exactly this culturally nuanced European way out of this situation where we are right now?
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, thank you, the Lux Award, for inviting us to this debate, which is, I think, is very timeless. You are asking about what can we foresee for the future in the cultural sector. I have to say that sometimes we are all the time saying that artificial intelligence is the future. I don't think so. I think it's present. We are every one of us, we are seeing the effects and the reality of artificial intelligence also in the audiovisual sector and in the whole of the cultural sector. I think it is bringing a lot of new opportunities, which is the title of this panel, to develop new products, new things, new ways of developing, but also it's raising ethical and democratic challenges, and we have to face it. I think this is the most important. We cannot keep apart this new technology, but we have to convive and to be aware of the challenges that this technology is putting on the center of the sector. For example, automatization has optimized a lot of audiovisual production processes. Diana has said some things that you used to take 15 days, 1 month, you can do now in 1 day, 2 days with a high quality of final product. But editing, generating, co-generating, you can do a lot of things. But however, I think that technology cannot replace human creativity. We have to be on that. We have to use artificial intelligence, but we cannot replace human creativity. And we have to, in the Parliament, we have to be very aware that we are legislators, and we have to regulate the creativity that comes only from artificial intelligence, and be very clear with the public and say, this is not human creativity. We need transparency. I think transparency is one of the most important words to tackle the challenges that we have in front with the artificial intelligence.
So I have a question actually to both of you, if you will. My question actually out of these two conversations is, where is the European citizen, or where is the European audience? And I'm just, Sophie, I'm just going to get to you as well. But we are seeing a kind of an unprecedented situation. So as you remember, TikTok, which has millions of users around the world, some of them in Europe, some of them elsewhere, actually was closed for a day, and then it sort of sparked back, and maybe it's going to be closed or acquired, or we don't know what is the path of the head. But what that kind of demonstrated is a scenario where a platform, whatever type of a platform it is it an audiovisual work platform, is it a social media platform, is it any other type of platform, which even has hundreds of millions of users, can be actually closed as this. We are seeing that the tension between transatlantic dimension and Europe has intensified, as what has happened especially in this past week, and obviously we'll have some things going on forward at the Munich Security Conference as well. And there's a kind of a really patchy road ahead. So I would like to kind of spin this, we have talked about the creative angle, but if we are kind of hypothesizing a scenario where suddenly we would wake up and all of our American-hold or globally held platforms will be closed tomorrow, what would be the kind of the economic road ahead on incentivizing through Parliament and other actions European innovators and European businesses to move on in this situation? Has the Parliament thought about a scenario? How can we, besides a very great regulatory response, also mount an economic response, which, by the way, in the present moment becomes a response of resilience and defense?
Well, if I may, I think this is now the debate on the European Parliament, on all the European institutions. We are talking every day about competitiveness because we have realized it that since the pandemic, European autonomous strategy is not well dimensioned, and we are depending on external industries. And what happened when we cut, for example, the gas and petrol from Russia, when we needed...
no, sorry, it's not cutting, it's accidents.
Yeah. When we needed surgery and face masks for the pandemic, and we didn't have, they were in China, and when we need artificial intelligence, our own artificial intelligence, and we don't have because it is all in United States or China or another parts of the world. So this is now the debate. How can we allocate new funds for creating internal products, European products for artificial intelligence, but not only for that, for all the research and innovation products that we are going to need for the next 20 or 30 years, because we know that the geopolitical situation is so strange, is so moving, that in one day, suddenly, we can be without tools to go on with our activities. We can stay without social media. Suddenly, in one day, we can stay without artificial intelligence platforms in one day because maybe Trump or any other one decides to cut. So we are now debating this week. We come from Strasbourg, from Monday to Thursday. We have been debating on the plenary on the European Parliament, and the main debate has been the competitiveness compass. It will be reflected in the next MFF, multi-annual financial framework.
Which the consultations are on right now.
Okay.
Please.
No, just to add some words. One of the pillars of this mandate, because we are in the beginning, that means that we are constructing all the budgets and all the, but one of the objectives of this mandate that the Commission put on the table is the, I don't know in English it's correctly, but the strategic sovereignty in all the aspects. And here there are all the cultural sector too. And it's true that politics, it's always in contradiction, because when you want to move or you want to make some legislation in the other way, there are the diplomacy with the third countries, etc. I mean, I like the question because it's one of these things that you are talking about. In this case, the artificial intelligence, but in the same way, you have to have a good relationship with the planet, and this is impossible. In the end, you have to choose or you have to take away. But it's true that why not in the European, in Europe, with this new mandate, we don't start to think to create, for example, a public social media in Europe? I don't know if it's too much, but we're public interested social media. Why not? We don't start to put the money to go to this strategic sovereignty that we need in the cultural sector.
Or a transparent, fair, and remunerated, creative-oriented European AI.
Exactly.
Thank you. So, as I understand, there is a sense of momentum and urgency around that. Before we go to our next speaker, I would actually like to ask your solidarity. As you understand, news in the past days, politically speaking, have not been great for Ukraine and for Europe. And I'm extremely honored to have Vova Ovsienko, who has traveled from Kiev to have a conversation with us today. Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Vova, you work at Respeecher, and today we have spoken about this need to have safe, ethical, European, forbearing artificial intelligence that can actually amplify creativity and not to diminish. This has been a mission of ReSpeecher for the past 7 years. Can you a little bit explain what ReSpeecher does? And I think we can reveal also that ReSpeecher has been already quite a powerful DNA to power European creators, European voice artists, and also quite important European films, and even the Olympic Games.
Yeah, sure. We'll be happy to. So, in a nutshell, we specialize in creating synthetic voices and enabling AI-driven synthetic voice experiences. Over the past it's been 7 years. We've delivered around 180 projects, been recognized by such awards as Emmy, Webby, Clio, and this year, 2 of our projects got the Golden Globe, and 4 of our projects got Oscar nominations.
What those Oscar nominations are, you can hear after the Oscars. We'll have some momentum in there. But Vova, explain us a little bit. I think we need to kind of set the terminology right. What is synthetic media? It's not exactly a deep fake. There is a kind of a consensual process, and it's really kind of empowering also for the talents and the filmmakers as well. So let's kind of set this straight. And then I want to hear from you how you are actually assuring that the rights are protected, the identity is being protected, and everyone's kind of in control rather than the machine is driving things ahead.
Yeah, of course. And regarding the previous panel, I actually have a feeling that there is a lack of understanding and lack of knowledge between the different types of AI tools, because there are multiple tools out there, and there are multiple ethical tools that act and navigate, and the tools for creatives, for artists, created for artists. We've been on the market since 2018, and I have to say that it is challenging to navigate as an ethical company. It's really tempting to kind of start. Basically, we've been pitched to do so many gray area projects, and it's really tempting because it's for the startup. It's really great when you go viral, right? But all these years we've been resisting this, and it's been quite a challenge, I have to say.
So what you're doing is, and what ReSpeecher is doing, is creating a replica of someone's voice on someone's consent and with a human performance in the lead. Can you a little bit kind of explain the process of how that works?
Yeah.
And also really, I mean, you actually set the framework how to use this technology ethically. So just give us an overview.
Yeah, sure. So every single project that we start with the permission from the voice owner or his or her representatives. This is a rule that we never touch a project without a written permission. Once we acquire the permission, we collect the data, and again, we make sure that we can use the data and our clients can use the data. Then once the model is actually trained, we need another human being, another actor, to perform in a speech style of a particular voice that we need. So I've heard a lot about AI taking the job, but we actually need a human in front of the microphone. All our projects has a human touch to it, and actually since the day one of creating ReSpeecher, we recognized that only by a combination with the golden ear talent and the deep learning techniques, we can achieve the best possible sound quality. And for example, at ReSpeecher, we have created synthetic speech artist positions, and all those people are sound professionals, sound engineers, and we always advocating for them being in credits. And some of the sound professionals from Ukraine got to the projects with $100+ million.
Can you give us an example of where, historically or in the contemporary way, this technology is beneficial? I mean, why do we need that? Do you have examples of European films, the Olympic Games, and etc., where this type of cloning technology was essential, and where it's actually powering the creators rather than scaling or taking away their rights?
Yeah, so in some cases we can do the job way faster than on the post-production side it's done. So in some cases the post-production companies would come to us and say we need to spend about 3 months on that, and we can deliver that in a matter of weeks. So it's about the speed. In some cases, for example, when the athletes aren't professionally trained to be artists, and we can enable them to, I don't know, sing opera or speak multiple languages and sound as a native. And I hear a lot of complaints, especially from the films across the Atlantic, where we hear an American accent in when they try to speak some of the European languages or maybe other languages. And again, it can be eliminated with the help of our tech.
But the original performance still resides with the actor, right?
Of course, and we need a native speaker actor in front of the microphone to do that.
And tell us about the voice marketplace as well, because this is a purely affair that can actually benefit European voice artists too.
Yeah, so we have actually created a platform, a library of voices with a bunch of generic voices. Those voices belong to real people. We found them, paid them money, and obtained their permission to use their voices in our projects. We literally have permission on every single voice on the platform. And those are random people from the streets who have nothing to do with filmmaking or VO business. And this gives the ability to filmmakers to have a bunch of voices to choose. And again, it's like multiple voices, kids' voices, and this is, I hear, a big problem for the filmmakers.
So if someone's interested, I think Vova can give a bit of a take, but I think what is also very interesting is that you're actually not keeping any data at all after you have completed the project, right? The algorithm is yours, but everything related to identity, to the output, and etc., you're not storing it.
We always discuss that with the client, and we ask if you'd like to keep us the model, because quite a few, after first successful project, the clients usually come back to us and can use that model later on. But in all our agreements, it says that in 3 months, we're going to delete all the data.
Yes, so no training, no backdoors, no illegal usage.
Nothing.
Great. Look, final question, and then Sophie will look into the future. You're a Ukrainian company. You delivered some of your work during the moment where your office was bombarded with Russian rockets. You put on an internet connection, and you were committed to delivering things for the film industry. But you are the only beacon in Europe, or at least a new member of the Creative Europe Media Program. And I know that companies such as yours have horrible difficulty raising money, where some of the other companies which are European funded go to across the channel or go to America and scale 100x, 200x, 300x. You are committed to an ethical, creator-specific, and transparent way of operation. What do companies such as yours need in order systematically to change, to keep and build a European AI way?
Yeah, so we need to put more guardrails towards the IP ownership and copyright. Until now, the unethical players on the market cannot be held accountable. At the same time, we, the ethical company, has to navigate through this on our own. And again, back in 2018, we put these safeguards and ethical standards in our company, not because there is a legislative, but because it just feels right. You cannot use someone else's identity without asking that person.
Thank you. Sophie, you are doing a lot of future scenarios at the Copenhagen Institute of Future Studies, and you've been very seriously looking into both the kind of the potential scenarios and the potential futures of the European media and audiovisual sector. That also involves AI and looking into European competitiveness, and also you've been part of some initiatives looking into building some industrial coalitions. Let's start with the big picture. What is kind of realistically coming at us, or hypothetical?
So it's been some really interesting discussions, and I think that, as you also mentioned, that we really need to get a more nuanced view of what is actually AI, and I mean what is human, and I think it was also mentioned in the previous panel, it's more about the collaboration, and I think we cannot avoid moving into an AI-mediated future in one way or the other. Obviously, we have to do it right, we have to have the guardrails, we have to protect us. But I also think, I'm also here a little bit to provoke, that's my job as a futurist, because I don't want to sort of prompt fear, but I want to generate attention to the fact that the world will not look the same tomorrow as it did yesterday. And I think the media industry is really looking into some serious shifts that might be as big as the printing press, because suddenly we lose control. So no matter how much control we want, and we want to keep, with these new technologies, we will have to acknowledge the fact that some control will be sort of put into a new kind of ecosystem. So how do we go on with that? How do we protect the culture? And I also think, like here, there's been a lot of words about fear, about the theft, about stealing, about deepfake, all the very negative words around AI. But before we had the printing press, before we had mass media, stories, they were free. And they were molded to the moment. And they were made for the audiences. And you were talking about the consumers as well, the citizens, the European citizens. This is actually a lot of new opportunities to reach out in a new way and to get engagement and to get stories out to people who might not have been interested in the stories before. There's a lot of new potential in this. And you know, this is about opportunities and paths to innovation. And I think if we continuously only look at the things that we need to protect, who are we actually supporting? Are we supporting the creative industry by protecting? Or how do we actually support in this possible futures? Because I don't know what future will be. I don't have a crystal ball. We don't try to predict the futures at the Institute. We try to prepare. And we have to acknowledge the fact that this might be a very different future we're looking into in this AI-mediated world. And how will we stand as Europeans in that world?
There was a big Nordic media conference about 3 weeks ago. What are the kind of the markers or the kind of the highlights that are from a kind of an industry's, news industry's, media industry's perspective important right now that we could actually kind of teleport or adjust into the audiovisual industry as such? It was mostly focused on news media and these types of aspects, but what can we take from there and use it for the benefit in our own case?
I think there's a lot of difference between the news media and journalism in order to have control. We just saw a new report from the BBC about how much misinformation, so to say, you can get if you just take one prompt and you try to get a news story and be rewritten. So that kind of, again, that's a very unnuanced way of understanding how to use these tools. But that's one thing. But the artistic and the creative industry, I think, is really interesting in regards of how to use this in a new way, the new collaboration. Who are you collaborating with? What is the outcome of this? The new AI agents that might be your collaborators and can do a lot of the, help you with a lot of tasks. And you can sort of let them go out and do stuff. And I think that's really interesting. Also, as creative inspiration, I had the pleasure to talk to Mathieu Laurent from Google DeepMind, so that's one of the big tech companies, who talks a lot about liquid content. And his dream is to have a creative team to be from one of the biggest mentors that he knows, Rick Rubin, or some interesting, inspiring people that he can actually collaborate with as an AI. So I don't know how that's kind of this whole art of learning a new language when it comes to using these new tools that come up and get more and more sophisticated. Really interesting things that are popping out in this sort of world of liquid content, where content will just flow around. Your movies will become something you can read, something you can hear, something you can watch in a short format. How can you control that? How much control do you want of this? And how can we make some services and some tools that can help us in this? Because control is the new buzzword in AI, if you talk about the big trends, actually starting to control it. So a lot of these tools are not as controllable as we thought they were. So I don't know if you have the same the same experience, but it's getting more and more better, and we have to have that nuanced understanding of it.
So control and collaboration. Perfect. Do you have questions?
And creative intent. Remember, the human, I do agree, the human is important, and the human intent will always be there, whether it's from the creator or the human in the loop in the end, the consumer.
Questions from an audience? Yes, lady in the corner.
Well, thank you for these insights, and most of all, thank you for that case of the role of technology as an habilitator to get more free time and more a better mindset to create, and not the opposite, becoming tools for the technology to be more creative. There is an elephant in the room, which is clearly under everything that we have said, which is the fact that this innovation is not just an innovation, is not just a technological tool, but we are talking about an oligarchy that at the moment is defining the policy, not just in the United States, but potentially the role of what law is serving for, and what these tools are actually basic instruments for money aggregation and production. So we are not facing just an updated technology that helps us work faster and work better, but it's the source and the purpose of this technology that we cannot ignore. That's why I love that the debate is going on at the political level, and that's why I think everybody's hoping that Europe gets braver and more courageous in defending the center of the community, and the reason why the law has to protect the community and not just work in favor of few millionaires. And this is not just about sharing one political vision on another, but it's very clear that the deregulation of internet has generated incredible impacts in the way that the new generations are thinking, working, has generated incredible polarization in the economy, incredible polarization in the political elections, and the United States elections have been the proof of these. The question is actually very clear. Where is the debate over the elephant in the room, and what are the tools that are not just filmmakers? We create the social imaginary of society. We have a role that is a very strong responsibility, and I think that the word ethic is not just about, I want to keep my freedom of create, but it's where these creations are leading society. How are we protecting the role of letting teenagers think and not just be functional for a more efficient, time-wise production that leads to more money for a very few? So the European position is now more than just a regulatory position, but I think it's ethics in the politics. Thank you.
So who would respond?
Well, first of all, the politicians are citizens. The politicians have teenagers at home, and the politicians have been, for example, in my case, I have a bookshop 10 years in my small city in Catalonia. I mean, we are in the same, but it's true that in this moment of our life, make politicians. And that I want to be clear on that, because we are in the same page of the history of we are citizens in this case. It's true that our tool is the regulation when we are in a parliament. And in the case of the artificial intelligence, my feeling, we are 150 MEPs in the House, but my feeling is that it's going on really quickly in some sectors, or there are some sectors that how wants to do with this artificial intelligence. And the regulation, if we don't take care on what is happening in the cultural sector, this is my feeling that there are a crash. Because the artificial intelligence is a tool that uses several parts of the industry of our life, but have a specific impact or different impact in any sectors. And our sector is the cultural sector, and we have to take care, because you can make a credible regulation for the comercio, to the trades, if supermarket, etc., or to buy online, who finish or who have a negative actions or impact in the cultural sector. I don't know if I respond because you make a really long and we can spend a lot of time to answer this or to make a ping pong in this case, but I have like a MEP in this moment, this feeling, how we can, like MEPs in the House, in the European Parliament, take care of the regulations that is happening in another committees that we are not there, and how help us.
Let me kind of flip this back a little bit in another way for the sake of an argument. So we have talked about regulation, and but what about stimulation? And in many ways that I understand that we want to be very masochistic Europeans. Estonians, you know, they always work, they suffer. We have this saying that work, 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 and the love will come. So let's regulate their life. But what about actually kind of stimulating their life? And I get your very fair point that our industry has very big specificities. But I'm thinking whether the parliament and obviously within the legal and political mandates is looking also the way not to regulate the dialogue between the industry and the industries, but also stimulating the dialogue between industries, you know, whichever domain they would be.
Yes, of course. This is a very accurate question. Indeed, legislators at the parliament, we have three tools: regulations, she has explained perfectly, control of the government, control of the European Commission. We are the only one democratic control for the government. And then funding. We have these three tools. We are, the European Parliament as co-legislator is the only one who decides the budget for the European Union. And we are now thinking, what are we going to do for the next 7 years, 2028 to 2034. And we are at a crucial moment because needs has changed. In the past regulation, we thought about digital transition, about green transition, about social equality, social fairness. But now we are thinking about competitiveness, about security and defense, about
an ethical transition, as was pointed out.
Yes, but if we think about new priorities, we have to decide, or we create new ways of having funds, new taxes, or we take where we are going to take the money from other sources to allocate to these new priorities. And this is very risky for the cultural movement and for the artificial intelligence related to the cultural movement. Because if there are not new resources, they will take money from the current budget, which is allocated for Creative Europe and other tools, and they will be allocated to other sectors, to defense and security. And we can stimulate ethical artificial intelligence. We can stimulate a non-European industry on artificial intelligence if we want with the budget, but we need resources. And this is the big debate that we are facing this whole year 2025. If we are not able to generate new resources, we will be losing the battle, for sure.
So we have to stand as one. Thank you.
Yes.
One more question. Yes, at the back. Can we have a microphone to the back, please? Can you raise your hand again, please?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I will ask that question as a filmmaker because, I mean, also following this, there will be incoming debates about AI and its applications and also new tools generated by AI generated for filmmakers. And, I mean, as a film producer, we need to compete with like other filmmakers who are using more useful tools. We have payrolls and we need to pay people, right, to make their jobs. And I was wondering, actually following up on the topic of stimulation, I mean, how can we keep up with others? Because after COVID, actually the whole artistic industry suffered a lot and people lost their jobs. And how can we kind of jump up to that rebound that is incoming, right? Or I mean, that's what in our circles is being told, that there is some kind of rebound incoming. But is it AI-generated rebound without people, or how is it going?
Yeah, Sophie, you want to, as a futurist, what have you seen? And the Copenhagen Institute doesn't only look into audiovisual, it looks all kinds of elements of politics, society, 50 years of foresight from Europeans to the Europeans.
And I think that's the thing, like society is moving very fast in many other ways. Well, thank you very much for your question. And I just think that we really need to be ambitious to the fact with the funding to really matter and to really help and support and stimulate the industry moving into this. We really need to be curious. I think that some of the things that have been said on stage here as well from some of the people working with these technologies, really, really trying to support the innovators. It's very hard being an innovator in AI. You can ask people working in AI right now because there are so many questions, very, very important questions, ethical questions, challenges we need to figure out how to work around and how to work with. Because if we don't, then there is a chance or a risk that we'll be lost in one of those possible futures, and Europe will become this museum of old school media, which, might also be good for some, but will it be good for the industry? Will it be good for all the new creatives that are to come? Generation Beta has just been born, and we have no idea how they will consume their media. I think the European media industry has to prepare for the possible futures in that sense. So really be more ambitious and really try to make larger scale projects that can support you and your industry and your skills, and figuring out how to do this in a good way.
Thank you. So I guess we learned a lot of interesting things from this conversation. We understood that those conversations around this technology, but also its cultural nuanceness, the questions of representation of the creative sector are very prevalent at the Parliament. This is the moment where we need to have that urgency. We understand that the big picture might be very liquid and very fluent with actually a lot of competition and clearly monopolization attempts globally, but we also see that there are ways and opportunities such as in ReSpeecher to really try to find that European way, that ethical way that actually can benefit for everyone. I really hope as my closing words is that in many ways this dialogue that has been about ethics, transparency, and cultural uniqueness in the present context will be also a question about European identity. Specifically, I'd like again to thank the European Parliament, the European Commission, the European Film Academy, the Lux Award, and European Cinemas of putting this together. We are Europeans. We need to stand as Europeans, whatever the weather in Berlin will be. Thank you very much.
Can I take over? I understood that there is somebody else coming.
Images, powerful and alive, have begun to replace words in our lives. Yet they tell our story, our responsibility, our values and dreams rooted in Europe. And the films born of the richness of our lands carry the strength to unite our hearts. But with that power comes danger. The danger of an art that sounds the same everywhere. Suffocating diversity, silencing languages. Europe, a continent shaped by fractures and wars. Divided by borders, but united by culture. Marked by struggles for dignity. Yet always full of hope. Always searching for a common future. We believe in a culture that doesn't standardize, but celebrates diversity. This is our pledge. Our love for what we call home, Europe.
It's very dark, but we're just going to start talking. you can listen, and then later. To give the floor to you and to also welcome you on behalf of the European Parliament and of the European Film Academy.